Welcome everyone to Click Moments, where the right information at the right time is a portal from where you are to where you want to be. And I'm your host, Beth Orr. And today on episode 3, we are going to be talking about, can the people who have passed on beyond us now, can they still communicate with us? This is such an interesting topic to me because since I was a child, I've wondered about this. I've had personal experiences where I've either had premonitions that something was going to happen to somebody that I loved and cared about, and then it did, either almost simultaneously or right before, or bits and pieces of that something was going to happen. It kind of got jumbled up. It wasn't exactly like what I thought, but I knew something was going to happen, and it was out of nowhere, completely unexplained. It would come to me. Sometimes after somebody has passed away, I've had very clear times where I knew it was that person. When we're around people, they have a certain energy. That's why we like being around certain people, because they have a certain energetic frequency. We can't necessarily put words to that sometimes, but that's what it is. We like being around them because of how it feels to be around them. And when somebody passes on, they also have a unique energetic imprint. And so we can feel their energy. And so I've had that experience. I've talked to many people who've had that experience. And the question is this true? Is this really happening? So if it is, how would we experience it? And I've talked to enough people and experienced it myself that I'm going to kind of go through a list of, if somebody's trying to communicate with you that's passed on, what does this look like? How do they do this, right? The first way is you sense it. Sensing, we have our 5 senses, right? So we all know our 5 senses. The 6th sense is sensing, feeling, just knowing something. That's the one that is most, that usually comes to me, right? I sense something. I can feel somebody's energy. I don't see it, I feel it. I know it's them. Just like as if they were here, I can sense it. And sometimes it's one person that I've known, sometimes it's somebody else, but it's almost like they're talking, although I can't hear them, and I can sense their unique energy. So like an image of that person will come up, and I'll be like, I'm all of a sudden sensing that person, right? Somebody could say, oh, you must have just smelled something or seen something that reminded you of them. That's very different. I've also had that happen. Of course, like if I smell a tennis ball, sometimes I will think of a certain person in my life that I played tennis with that's not here anymore. That's very different. But whenever you're actually experiencing something, feeling somebody come into your psyche, you can see that person's name, that person's face, but it was just a sensation that you had. And then information comes along with it, like something that they're trying to tell you will come along with it. So that's sensing it, right? That's one way that somebody that's gone on and to the beyond, into the universe, that's one way that they'll try to communicate with us. Another way is sometimes people hear voices. They'll actually hear somebody talk. They'll hear them say something. I've never experienced that. But when somebody else has told me stories about it, it certainly makes sense that we each have different strength of our senses. Sometimes people have an incredible sense of taste. So other people have hearing, sight. So it makes sense that whatever our dominant traits are, that it might come to us in different ways. For me, I don't hear the actual words, but I can see the images of words or hear them in my mind's eye, meaning I don't actually physically hear them, but yet it's like a conversation is happening, but like telepathically, like knowing, deep knowing. So again, to me, that feels like sensing something, right? Some people see images. They can see people. They say that they have seen them either through vague form, and other people actually see the actual person manifest. And so again, it's that dominant sense that kind of comes through. Other times, people are communicating through objects. So I've had before lights flicker or lights stay on, like asking something of the universe, of God, or asking something of some particular person who's passed on, and then actually seeing lights come on as a sign. And it's interesting because when you look at paranormal activity, there is drawing on light or energy. And so there's something to the frequency or electromagnetic field that they can communicate through. So that's another way. Sometimes it's objects moving. You've heard stories before, I'm sure, of people who have like books fall off of a shelf, and it is open to a page that says something that person has been asking a question into the universe, and it's answering that question. So again, people who've passed on, they deeply want to communicate with us still. To me, that is it brings me such peace to know that they're walking alongside of us. It's almost like when they were here, we got to spend time with them whenever it was convenient or whenever we had time. But now we have access to people beyond and can communicate with them at any time. So if we can reframe it, it can actually be incredibly comforting. And there's many ways, and we're not going to go into that today, that we can connect and become more attuned to it. It's a skill. It's not like certain people have access to that skill. Just like any skill, any of us can develop that. So if you're interested, you can develop the skill to be able to understand the communication from people beyond and to feel that connection, which is incredibly helpful whenever we're missing somebody from beyond, and whenever we just want to get information about our unique path. Sometimes people will show up as animals, and this is so fascinating to me. It can be an animal that is kind of like pre-known because it was something that was like their animal. Like oftentimes cardinals come to people and they'll say a male or female cardinal is something. Hummingbirds. It may be something that is unique to that person, an animal that's unique to that person. But many times what I've heard from people and what I've experienced myself is that you don't know that animal is them until they choose it once they've gone beyond. And then you start to have interactions that are very clearly related to your conversations with that person. And then this animal keeps showing up. And I'm going to ask you to keep an open mind here. If you're like, this isn't resonating with you. Just because you haven't experienced something yet doesn't mean it's not real. There's a lot of things in our life that we haven't experienced. You may not have paddleboarded, but it doesn't mean that paddleboarding doesn't exist. And if you've never been to a movie at a movie theater, it doesn't mean that movies at movie theaters don't exist. Like the reality is that what our personal experiences in this world can fit probably into a glass compared to the infinite space in the universe. So if you're here, I believe that you're open to and interested in learning more about this topic. Another way that people can communicate from beyond is through synchronicities. So if we're asking of something of the universe or of a particular individual, and suddenly something matches up or happens that we're like, that's just uncanny. For example, that this person's best friend would reach out within a few hours and we haven't heard from them in years. That's a synchronicity. Like the likelihood that somebody that was close to that person reaching out within a short time frame, they got nudged and you sent an appeal into the universe. Sometimes we can even ask specifically for a specific sign, and that shows up. So it's not a synchronicity per se, but it's an actual response to a specific thing that we've asked for that they've managed to make happen. Another thing that can happen is we just get nudged. It's kind of like our sensing something, but we get it within our intuition. It's that deep knowing that we're at peace with. There's no angst about it. It's like it's knowing. We're like, everything in me says that this person just gave me the information that I needed to respond and move forward in a way that makes sense to me. And I'm not conflicted about it. I don't understand it, but I'm not conflicted about it. Our intuition has a certain quality to it, to where it feels right. Another way that people can communicate with us is through our dreams, like when we're sleeping. Our subconscious is on, but our conscious mind is closed down. And so it's easier to give us messages and get access to us through that. It's also just, depending on our relationship with these experiences, it can actually be more comforting to us, or easier for us, more palatable for us to take, as opposed to a direct experience, which, depending on, again, what our comfort is with this, could be challenging. And so it's kind of a good gateway to come through our sleep. But also sometimes we're just not attuned or paying attention, or we're missing something. And so it can come, messages can come through our dreams. Other times it can come through callings. Like, people from beyond can actually be pretty responsive to what we're asking for in the universe. We can be asking to be utilized as a vessel. We can be asking for knowledge about what our next right step is. And that has a very callings kind of quality to it, meaning it feels right. Much like our intuition, a calling is our mission, or something that we feel like we're supposed to do, or that we've signed up to do. And oftentimes, not just God or the universe is involved in that, but our spirit guides, or the people who were with us in waking life, who've now passed on, who have made a commitment to continue on with us and help guide us as we go throughout our life. Sometimes these experiences can be subtle. They can be so subtle that we're not sure that it's true, and we can feel like maybe they didn't happen, or maybe we drummed them up, or we invented them ourselves. But sometimes it's really clear. Sometimes something happens that's so clear that we're like, yeah, that this is definitely a message from beyond. I'm going to give you an example of that now. I have a 12.5-minute audio that I'm going to play for you. And this is from November 4th, 2022, just this last year. So it's been 8 months. And in this audio, this was the day after, so 24 hours, the day after my grandmother had passed away. I was in Tampa, Florida, and I woke up from a deep sleep. I was exhausted, and I had woke up, and I literally sat straight up, and I fumbled for a piece of paper, and I just started going, just taking notes. When the universe or somebody beyond is trying to talk to us, like in that circumstance, my conscious mind wasn't even activated. I was asleep. I wasn't thinking about anything. I wasn't trying to produce anything. I was literally sleeping, and all of a sudden was awakened to this information. And oftentimes that's what happens, is that it comes to us. We're not necessarily in that moment directly asking for something, although certainly that can happen as a response, a direct response to something that you've just asked. But sometimes it's when we least expect it. And that's what happened in this circumstance. I had this information coming out of me, just pouring out of me, that I didn't know what it was at the time, but I knew it was something that I had to keep and write down. There are writers, there are authors, there are artists who describe this, where inspiration from the ethers, meaning something outside of us in the invisible realm beyond us, comes through us. And I think we describe it as that because there is a quality of, we know when something is drummed up by us. Like when we're thinking about something, it is something that we're actively involved in or participating in. But when something comes through us, we're not even really thinking about it. It just enters. Or it's almost like it's passing by, and somehow our energy gets interconnected with it, and we experience it, and we're like, oh my gosh, we recognize the divinity or the importance of it. And so we feel this deep desire to capture it, to somehow collect it, and to share it, right? And so that's what this is. Like, I had this experience to where I wake up, it's the day after my grandmother passes away, I wake up and I'm writing down this information, and at this point, I don't know what it is yet, but I know that I have to capture it, and I have to get it down. And what you're going to notice is there's an intensity, and when I listen to it now, I actually feel like there's definitely some things said that I hadn't thought about before, that I wouldn't have said exactly like what is said, but I'm playing this because I really am devoted to sharing what this feels like and what this looks like when something like this happens. So we're going to listen, and then we'll process after. So here we go. The world, all of us, this beautiful creation that we've been given, it all deeply matters to me. I care about you. And as a whole, within society and people, we want to see things improve. We want to learn new things. And when we do learn new things, we apply these concepts. And let me give you an example. We don't have the Wright brothers planes anymore. We have jets. We know that the world is not flat anymore. We know it's round. Now, guys, we went through it with this. We had debates about whether or not the world was round or flat. When those individuals were living in this world, it was questionable whether or not the world was round or flat. And I am sure, and I've heard about this, where people who believed that it was round when the dominant thought was that the world was flat, those people that believed that the world was round were ridiculed. Some of them were killed, but they were ostracized because they had a different view. But the bottom line is, we grow and we learn and we understand, and then suddenly the society as a whole understands something that we didn't know before. So going on in this concept, we don't build castles anymore. Not that they're not cool and amazing. We don't build castles anymore. We have high rises. We have new materials that are safer and that make more sense for our world, and we use those. We don't drink from a pond in water that has dangerous bacteria. We actually have filtered clean water now. We've understood that it's in our best interest as a species to stop drinking whatever water we can get or staying with the way that things are. We actually have clean drinking water. In our modern time, we know that the iPhone 14 is better than the iPhone 6. It's updated. It's got better features. We know this. We're not afraid of that. We're like, what's to be afraid about the iPhone 14? You upgrade. We don't have Model Ts anymore. We have SUVs. We don't have bunny ears on our TV. We have flat screens. We don't buy our homes from the Sears Roebuck catalog. Look it up if you're not aware. We do not do that anymore. We actually have homes that are built because we intentionally designed them, but they are not given to us in a kit. We as a species get very deeply that change is good. It is good. It's actually essential for the survival of our species. It is good. So I have two questions for you. How come we want people to be the same as they were in 1950? And we believe that God and religion should stay the same. People, us, the human species itself, We believe that we should stay the same and we should not evolve like every single thing around us, which is a natural thing. And we believe that our understanding of God as we learn should stay the same. We, as a human race, know things now about our bodies, minds, and spirits that we're not applying. We know things. We know that women have the capacity to vote, that women actually have minds, that we should have the right to vote. We know that people of all backgrounds have the right because they were born just as they were. They did not evolve or change to be the culture or race that they are. They were born that way. The universe made them that way, and they should be able to live fully as they were made. We don't have one species of animals. We have many different animals. And within our race, we have many different backgrounds. We are not made the same, but we are made from the same source. These are complicated concepts sometimes, though, when we are looking at invisible things beyond us, like space and the moon, and even God feels intangible. These are all invisible things that we're taking people's word for it because we don't see it. We don't feel it. We don't utilize our five tangible senses to experience it. So we're really at the mercy of the people around us who are giving us information about these invisible things. We have to trust NASA and astronauts and scientists and astrophysicists about the way that the world works. We trust them. Do we understand the concepts as deeply as they do? No. But we understand that we can get to the moon, that people have been on the moon. We understand from Hubble what the pictures are in space, but we loosely understand these concepts. But God, or the universe, which many of us call God, we can feel this divine energy within us. It's part of us. Whatever your background is, we know, and we've often said, we came from there and we will return to there. But we are currently still part of it. It's inside of us. And sometimes people can't comprehend this. It's just like, what? But how much do we sit with that? How much time do we give? Are there actually times that we actually give more time to understanding our newest, latest iPhone? And we look through the manual and we spend hours and days getting excited and unpacking it and looking at it and understanding it. But how much time do we actually give to understanding the way that the world works? How the universe is deeply intertwined with us. Some people are blocking their own growth. And by them blocking their own growth, they are blocking our growth. We talk about survival of the fittest in a species. And right now we have many leaders and people in the world who have a louder voice, who are unable to accept this vast vision and utilize the knowledge that we know in the world. And if we do not accept this evolved knowledge, their refusal to grow or evolve as a species is killing us. But we have an opportunity. There are millions of people in this world who know that there are other ways of living. And because they're actually peaceful, that they live in a way that love is the primary tenet, that kindness, that growth and change, that focusing on their own growth and change and the ways that they can tangibly impact the world directly around them. There is these beings in the world who want to share our gifts. We want to improve the world for all. We can kindly try to bring people along. But if we don't, and we keep just bringing ourselves along,
without an intentional plan for how we're going to share our gifts and bring them alive, if we don't bring our gifts out into the world, we will die, all of us. But we can focus on what's right in the world. We can focus on what's right in us. I believe that we have each been given the answer to what it will take to survive as a species, but we each have to wake up to that truth. We all have little pieces inside of us that we know we're being asked to share. And if we collectively share it and focus on that, and we focus on bringing out the good in ourselves and sharing it in the world, we can shift what is happening right now in the world. We can have a vision for a world that we see the good in ourselves and we see the good in others, that we believe in the good in ourselves and we believe in the good in others, that there is not separateness and divisiveness and pitting us against each other. These are old constructs. These are old belief systems. We are evolving in a way that we don't need that anymore. And those people that still believe those old constructs, they have an opportunity to evolve. We all do. Almost every single person in this world who is having a different way of looking at the world has intentionally chosen to believe this way. They have done the work. They have unpacked it. They have searched for it, because we know, something inside of us knows that we will not be able to make it through this unless we do something different. We can't keep believing that the world is flat. We cannot keep riding around in Model Ts. We cannot keep using the iPhone 6. We cannot keep these old ways of being. We have to keep evolving. We can't keep believing the world is bad and that there are just bad people. Bad people. All of this kind of mindset suggests that people are scared. The people in the world that want this power, that are trying to force things, when they're trying to control women in our bodies and other people, they're afraid. They have a scarcity mindset. It creates competitiveness and separateness because they do not have a vision for how literally, if we do good in the world and we have love and we share, everybody can have goodness in this world. It doesn't have to be a few people. Everybody can actually have good in the world. But there is a way of living that people are living all over, where there's happiness, kindness, positivity, hope, certainty that there is beauty beyond us, that there is this connection to the other side through our intuition, which guides us. We can choose to spend more time with that. It's time for us to upgrade our human race and have new beliefs about the world. We can look at today and what we can do better and see how acting now can impact tomorrow versus being mad about the past that we can't change in a future that will not be here unless we root ourselves now. It is time. This is our opportunity. We can do this collectively, but we need each and every one of us to look inside ourselves and believe that as a collective, we can change this alone. I believe in us. I believe in you.
So, that was November 4th, 12 minutes and 37 seconds. And to give you some context for how this came about, I mentioned that, I woke up that morning and all this information came through. And afterwards, I immediately knew that it was a podcast. I didn't have a podcast. This was last year. I wasn't doing that yet. But yet I knew that that's what it was. In fact, I knew that that's what it was. And oddly, I had it all set up. I had my equipment set up out there because I'd been thinking about doing a podcast. But I had no concept of what it would look like. And I'd been thinking about doing a podcast for 2 years and I still hadn't done anything. So this wasn't like, oh, I had set up my podcast stuff and so I was going to be doing it. No, this wasn't unusual for me, and I usually didn't do anything, right, with it. Practiced maybe, but nothing firm. And so it was like, to me, I will say a couple things. First of all, did you notice how there were so many different topics that kind of came through, right? Kind of like it was like there was a quality of randomness, but yet there was a thread in there, right? I think one of the things that's important when we're thinking about what does this mean, if they're trying to give us a message from beyond, number one, it makes sense that the veil is then before somebody leaves this earth, but it also is still thin immediately after. So it makes sense to me that my grandmother, within 24 hours of leaving, was getting me information, had access to information that needed to be shared in an effort to help us. But I believe that you could hear this message and that every single person that listens to it might hear a uniquely different call to action. When we're getting information from beyond, it speaks to us individually. My role was to actually put it out there. My role was to take the information and put it into an audio, which is what I did. But then I didn't put it out. So here we are 8 months later, and the world has had some backward movement. And when I think about the backward movement, this audio comes to my mind. And I think, wow, this really speaks to, it would be like today, us going backward 40 years in legislation and taking away things actually shows that we're not evolving, that we're not learning, that we're not coming up with new ideas. In fact, we're going backwards. And it would be like we're going back to a Model T. And that's when it hit me. Oh, there's an audio about this. It makes sense that this is for now. So that's what it means to me, intuitively. That's the nudge I got. But you may listen to this and go, oh, I have a completely different calling interpretation, which would be right for you. And if it's a call to action for you to actually participate in some solutions that move us forward, the point is the universe is trying to tell us something, right? And you may be thinking, well, how do I get access to what it's trying to tell me? You're probably going to get an intuitive nudge. There's going to be something that immediately comes to you, right? Which is in your intuition when you have this experience of, yes, this is my emphatic yes from what I hear in this. Or you can ask into the universe or to your guides and ask, what do you want me to do with this? When you get quiet, you say, what do you want me to do with this? Oftentimes, if we pause and we don't keep talking and we listen, just like we would in a conversation, we would pause and listen, a response comes. So give some space to be able to listen. But the universe is either, what does this mean? The universe is either trying to tell us something, or it could be responding to our energy. We're giving appeals individually, and the universe is responding to those appeals. We may not hear it, we may not understand it, but we're getting answers. And sometimes we just don't know what to do with it. But it feels like that this could be calling on us uniquely to do our part in a collective response to what's happening in the world. So what do we do with it when we're getting messages from the other side? What do we do with it? Number one, we can just reject it. We can deny it. I mean, we can do that. We have free will. We know that, right? Usually, though, if we do that, there's a lot of emotions around it because it kind of nags at us, like something in us says, this is really important. Or it'll come up again and again and again because it's something it's responding to something that we know is important to us and to humanity. instead of rejecting it, we can support it. We can actually, listen to what's being asked of us and follow up or follow through with whatever the messages are asking of us. And then that would be leaning in and answering a calling of whatever that is that's asking us to do. But the bottom line, either it's asking us, the universe, our guides are asking us to do something, or maybe we, and not individually. We're individually asking, but we, as a collective, are asking for something, and the universe is giving us an answer. That's very much something that could be happening. This means that we each have a part, and that part is manageable. It's something that we absolutely can respond to when we just do our part. That's all we have to do. And if you did your part and I did my part and somebody else did their part, then we could be responsive to whatever's being asked of us. In this situation, it feels like something's being asked of us so that we can continue to move forward in a way that is responsive to what's happening in this world. It's a collective humanity kind of response. But whatever is yours to do, that's for you to figure out. That's for you to tune into. That's for you to start learning. If you don't know what to do, then start there. Start asking yourself, what does one do? You Google all kinds of stuff, I'm sure. I do. I Google ridiculous things. This could be something that could give you a lot of information. There's probably some documentaries that you can look at, but tuning in and getting quiet, listening to your intuition when are messages that are coming through or beyond, then that's just where to start. Or asking the universe, what do you want me to do with this? What are you trying to tell me? What do I need to do? But the important part is to begin. To begin to act towards what we're being told, what we're feeling just intuitively. We don't have to tell everybody. We can just start with what it is and see where it leads and see if there's any meat to it. See if it resonates within us or leads us to something else that seems important. But oftentimes it's a call to something that we've uniquely been asking for, and there's an energetic frequency that draws it to us, the law of attraction, right? We're asking for something in the universe and it's responding to us. And so when we respond back and we act on it, then it leads us somewhere, right? The communication from beyond is something that is trying to interact with us. It's an invitation to participate. But if we can share what we're each being told, like it's taken me 8 months to share this audio. That's my part. It took me 8 months though to put this out. It's taken me years to do the podcast, right? So I'm not trying to make light of it, or I'm not trying to say that it's easy. Oftentimes there's something that we have to overcome to do it. But sometimes it's just simple things, just listening to little things. It's making one small change in our life. The universe or our guides are trying to tell us to do something differently. It's to make a lifestyle change. It's to call that person because that person misses us. It's healing something in us. Sometimes it's not something huge like humanity. It's something very small and approachable that's unique to us. That's a gift that we're being given an opportunity to respond to. That it's not just on us, but that it's a reminder that we have access to infinite resources that we can respond to. But I ultimately look at it as an act of love. The universe, the people that aren't here anymore, love us dearly, and they're trying to tell us things. They still want to be part of our life. That makes me so happy. It's so comforting to know that the people who have left are trying to still interact, and they're just asking for us to pay attention and to still have a relationship with them in some way, that there's something that they're trying to share with us that could improve our lives. So I would ask you, most importantly, what are you being told? Could be for you, something just for you, but it could be something that is for something for you to share with somebody else, or for something for you to share with a collective, more people. But whatever it is, tune in and just start. Just start. So we're going to talk about this more later, but I just wanted to give an introduction to this topic today. I hope that you found it informative, and I just want to thank you for tuning in and keeping an open mind, and I would love to hear any kind of questions or responses to this in the responses from the videos and audios. So thank you for tuning in, and a special thanks to Micah Mackenzie for the cover art for Click Moments. Appreciate your artistry, and thank you, my friends. And until next time.